You sweat a 4-inch copper main, and you don't pressure test the riser. The crew is on the floor waiting. 9 months later, the leak detection shows a pinhole behind the drywall on your stack. One cold solder, and the GC backcharges you for 75 days. No pay, no per diem, nothing. There are only 3,800 master mechanical plumbers in the country who ever get this far. This is every level of life as a plumber. If you like breakdowns of how careers actually progress, like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Level 1. The apprentice. You're 17, in a trade school shop, cutting half-inch pecs with a ratchet shear. The Pro Press weighs 7 pounds, and your tool bag is a Walmart special. The first time you breathe flux smoke off a hot joint, you'll lie awake at 2 a.m. with your throat raw and a metal taste that won't go away. You still show up at 6:30. There are 482,700 U.S. plumbers working today, and the bottom 10% earn under $36,700 a year. The starting wage at the 10th percentile is $17.65 an hour. ZipRecruiter pegs a first-year apprentice at $18.10. You ream pipe, snake drains, drag fittings, set carriers, while a journeyman roughs in the walls and he tells you to stop watching and start cutting. You enroll in a 5-year UA-MCAA program through the Local 130 JATC. Tuition runs employer-paid, but you cover books, IPC and UPC code references, and tools, roughly $3,900 across the first 2 years. You sit for your OSHA 10, $89. Then comes the first documented evaluation that bumps your scale, a 1,000-hour DWV and water distribution review. You pass on the first try. The foreman moves you onto your own bathroom group. Texas alone employs 45,820 plumbers, and California another 58,400. Level 2. The commercial roughin man. You're 23 on a 6-story medical office build. The median plumber in America earns $61,550 a year, and you earn just under that. The 75th percentile hourly rate is $36.12, and that's the ceiling unless you leave the tract housing route. Your shop runs hospitals, schools, retail to print. Slab, rough, top out, trim, test, move on. You learn the UPC inside and out. You sit the journeyman license exam, $150 for the application, $90 for the test, and you carry 8,000 documented hours in a stamped book. You pass it. You stack medical gas, backflow, and process piping certs on top. A recruiter from a semiconductor fab contractor slides into your DMs. Intel in Chandler offers $44 to $52 an hour with an $8,000 sign-on. TSMC and Samsung post $38 to $46 for an experienced fitter on a fab that takes 30 months to commission. Micron in Boise runs $42 an hour. 12,000 mechanical tradesmen work fab country in Arizona alone. You take the tour. You see a fitter strapped into a fall harness at 2 in the morning, brazing a 6-inch process line under a sub-fab ceiling 6 stories down. The owner spends $120 million a year on mechanical labor for one campus. The recruiter asks if you can travel. You realize the paycheck plateaus at $33 an hour unless you leave the city and chase the mega project. You quit on a Friday. You drive to a fab build in Phoenix on Monday. Level 3. The traveling fitter. You're 27 living out of a 24-foot fifth wheel parked behind a truck stop outside Casa Grande. The fab runs 6 days a week, 10 hours a day, double time after 40, and Sunday premium. The Chicago Local 130 journeyman scale this year is $58.90 an hour, going to $61.85 by 2026. UA Local 250 in Los Angeles is $63.10. The GSA per diem is $178 a day untaxed, and the IRS high cost rate is $225. With per diem stacked on top, the math becomes a different number than the wage on the rate sheet. You walk up to take the orbital weld qualification. The test, a 2-inch 316L stainless tube butt weld with full penetration on a Magnatech head, X-rayed and helium leak checked. The first-time fail rate is 40 to 50%. You watch 3 fitters in a row blow it. One fails on the purge, one has sugaring on the ID, one has lack of fusion at the start tab. You pull your hood, you set the schedule, prep the bevel mirror clean, run the program, watch the puddle close like a coin. The bead stacks identical all the way around. The QC inspector pulls the film, home, looks at it, says nothing, and stamps it. You passed. They put you on the gas yard. You make $54 an hour as a sub-foreman with a $4 truck rate on top and $140 a day per diem. You've been here 4 months. Your knees are fine. Your hands are not. You burn through 3,500 milligrams of ibuprofen a week. The road life is real, and your wife is in another state. The general foreman tells you he can put in a word at Local 290 in Portland. You buy the travel card that night. Level 4. The process piping fitter. You're 33. A Miller XMT welder strapped on a scissor lift in a subfab 1,500 miles from home on a leading-edge chip plant. UA Local 469 journeyman scale on the current Arizona mega project agreement is $68.40 an hour. The premium tier runs $72.85. The fringe stack on top runs $39.20 an hour. Mega project per diem is $185 a day, untaxed. The orbital school cost you $9,500, and the medical gas brazier card was $1,600. To even sit for the qualification, you logged 7,500 apprentice hours and 1,200 journeyman hours on high-purity work. You carried 5 foreman recommendations in a sealed packet. There are 3,800 high-purity fitters in this region. Less than 1% of U.S. plumbers ever weld in a Class 100 cleanroom. The forum number for monthly take-home on a 6x10 with truck rate and per diem is around $33,500. The aggregate annual figure runs around $210,400. Your tool inventory was a $24,000 build, and some fitters have $45,000 in orbital heads before they leave the gang box. The spec on this job allows a 1.5% project-wide rework rate, roughly 3% for any individual fitter before they pull your badge 60 days. Your weld-on process line 217 comes back from the borescope with a sliver of discoloration at the 3 o'clock heat tint. You cut it out, you re-weld it, you wait. The TSMC Arizona campus crossed $40 billion by late 2024, up from a $12 billion estimate in 2020. The Intel Ohio fab is running $28 billion across 2 modules. The Samsung Taylor build hit $44 billion, and UA Locals made every one of its high-purity process welds, all 280 miles of stainless tubing inside the gas room. The fab outlives every fitter who ever touched it. The bulk gas yard stays piped. The stainless never corrodes away. Level 5, the master plumber. You're 38, your back is going, and you stop bending pipe to start stamping prints. You spend $4,500 all in on the master plumber license. The exam fee runs $250 to $500 depending on state, plus prep courses, plus the latest IPC, UPC, and state amendment books. The exam is 2 parts. Passing is 75% on each section, and the first-time pass rate clusters at 30 to 45%. You fail the load calculation portion the first time, and you sit it again 90 days later. You pass. You make $90,000 to $130,000 a year now, and senior masters running their own service shops clear $165,000. You walk a job with a flow gauge and a digital manometer, and you write the correction notices on the journeyman you came up with. They call you the stamp now, and you take the joke. The same code that controlled your hands for 17 years is now your authority. Level 6, the underwater pipe fitter. You're 31 and you went a different way. You spent $26,400 at the Commercial Diving Academy in Florida for a 7-month subsea program. All in, with gear and the medical, the cost was $38,900. You did 220 field days as a tender, 110 working dives, 8 hyperbaric chamber runs, and 35 days of subsea outfall support before ADCI carded you for surface-supplied air. The outfall is 60 feet down with 0 visibility silt, and you will be working the manifold flange for 12-hour bottom rotations. The last 2 days, you will not be on the surface. You will be at depth in a stage. The dry suit traps 3 to 4 kilograms of sweat per dive. You breathe surface-supplied air through a Kirby Morgan, so your voice comes back to topside sounding flat and clipped. The Gulf day rate runs $1,050 to $1,500 a day, including depth pay, and depth pay alone is $2 to $5 per foot per day. A single 28-day rotation grosses $30,000 to $55,000, and a 10-year veteran who lands 185 active days at $1,500 a day clears $277,000. There are roughly 940 subsea mechanical divers in the country out of 3,300 commercial divers. Of every 20 graduates, around 1 is still down there 5 years later. The umbilical is your only line. No rescue is coming for the next 2 minutes if you foul it on a flange. Level 7. The mechanical contractor. You're 58 and you stopped wrenching 10 years ago. You bought an 18-truck service fleet, then a sheet metal shop, then the prime mechanical contract for a hospital tower out of Houston. You sit in a bid room with a project manager and a surety underwriter, and you talk in EBITDA multiples. Southland Industries was founded by a mechanical family in 1949. They remain employee-owned with $1.4 billion in revenue and 2,000 employees. Murray Company was started in 1918 in Los Angeles, and today it runs $700 million across 1,400 employees, still family-controlled. EMCOR out of Norwalk, Connecticut, founded in 1994 from JWP, did $14 billion in revenue last year across 130 operating units. Comfort Systems USA runs $5.9 billion across 16,000 employees and 47 operating companies. You signed for the building 12 years ago, and you haven't picked up a wrench since. The South Fork Mechanical Room sat in a Brooklyn high-rise on March 12, 2015. 3 contract plumbers were on it. Both of the gas isolation valves required at the worksite were left half open. A worker's torch ignited a leaking gas riser inside an unpurged service shaft. All 3 men died. The Manhattan DA's office charged the contractor and the property manager with criminally negligent homicide. 52 plumbers and pipefitters died on the job in 2022. Burns and explosions remain a leading cause of mechanical trade fatalities, with 38 deaths a year tied to gas work alone. API Group's mechanical division restructured a major sub in 2022, a regional contractor hit by a single hospital owner dispute. The owner refused to release a $27 million retention payment. A Northeast utility laid off 1,400 union fitters within weeks of a major LNG project cancellation in 2020. 7,500 union jobs had been promised on the terminal, and barely half got built. The wrench you set on a piece of half-inch copper in a trade school shop is the same wrench that built the country's water, gas, sewer, and medical grid. The plumber is one of the few trades where the work outlives the man, the company, and the developer. The riser stays in the wall, your name does not.